Thank you very much. Okay, I guess. Yes, good afternoon, everybody. It's a great pleasure to speak in front of such an audience. And the previous speakers have really nicely set up a context for me. The session is called Nature-Based Development. And in fact, since the presentation about Kazakhstan and what I'm going to talk about is really about how to mainstream conservation into development, meaning that how to make sure that development forces, which are really hard to confront and to contest, but they can be realigned in a way that does not harm nature, at least not in the way it currently does. So let me try to understand how this works. Here we go, yes. So, of course, geography matters, and we've listened to what's been happening in Europe, in Africa, now heard about Central Asia. The Global Tiger Initiative, which was launched 5 years ago, is actually centering on this part of the world, which is currently 13 countries that still have tigers in the wild. And as you can see, the habitat has shrunk over the last 100 years now to less than 7% of its original habitat, and the population of tigers is now a mere 3% of what it used to be in the past. Out of 9 subspecies of tigers, 3 already extinct. It's the Caspian tiger. By the way, that's a subspecies of tiger that also used to live in Kazakhstan, among other Central Asian countries. And I understand the leadership of Kazakhstan is now subscribing to an effort to reintroduce tigers in Kazakhstan, which will be interesting. Also, Java tiger and Bali tigers, they were all extinct in the recent past. We've heard from Li Kuang about her heroic effort to restore South China tiger. So this is what's been happening. Actually, this chart shows that the decrease and the collapse in the both habitat and population of tigers, it's not just some long-term historic process since 100 years ago, which it is, but even in the last 20 or so years, it continued to collapse despite the really major efforts by the conservation community. Recently, I was going through some economic publications, and this particular map struck me as highlighting the area that we work on in the Global Tiger Initiative. And I intentionally took off the legend to this map for you to see that this is where the tiger world is. So what is that conspicuous dark green area which is highlighted in this map? So now look at the legend and explanation. That shows that this is the area which has been fastest developing in the world over the last couple of decades. So this is the fastest growing region economically. That's where the so-called tiger economies are. And so really it's the area where it's not only a human-dominated landscape, it's also a landscape which is fastest developing in terms of economic growth. And also the conservation sector is really short on resources and capacity because it's not really integrated into development agenda. So we all know that this is a cross-sectoral, multi-sectoral issue. It deals with both lack of capacity, lack of proper management, corruption and land grabbing with regard to habitats, wildlife poaching, illegal wildlife trade, demand in wildlife products. 1.5 billion people will move, additional people will move to the cities by 2030. So those are the huge forces of development that we are kind of confronting in the tiger part of the world. And infrastructure grows at the level of $800 billion per year in infrastructure investments. So, well, white tigers, it's clear, we're talking of an apex species, a capstone species, as someone told earlier today. It's also a wonderful it's considered to be one of the most animals with the highest social traction. I think Animal Planet made a survey some years ago, and people voted for what is the most favorite animal, and tiger came first, even before like house dogs or house cats, which are the typically kind of the popular animals. So it has huge traction. It's an iconic species, big cultural symbol in that part of the world and globally. And the taiga landscapes, the remaining taiga landscapes, are having huge values in terms of economic values, in terms of both conservation and underpinning fundamentals of economic development, but they are not properly factored into the development priorities. So, Global Tiger Initiative, as I said, it was launched 5 years ago in June 2008. It is an alliance of 13 countries. 13 doesn't sound like a lot of countries. There are almost 200 in the world, but if you think of the population living there, that's 3.3 billion people. That's half of the world living in taiga range countries. And that's an area that we are working with, and it's those countries that are working with 40 plus, actually more global international partners, and some of their logos are shown here, not all of them, of course. And it's a country-driven initiative. In 2010, many of you may have seen the news about the Taiga Summit in St. Petersburg, which was hosted by the then Prime Minister of Russia. There were 5 Prime Ministers attending, including Prime Minister of China, Laos, Nepal, and Bangladesh. The World Bank President co-chaired it. And so that's an illustration of the a powerful coalition at the top political level. Today we've seen another excellent example of President Chissano being really spearheading these efforts in another region of the world. But that's what it takes, highest political will at the top level to bring forces together. So that Taiga Summit adopted at the level of heads of government, St. Petersburg Declaration, which really united all countries around the shared goal of doubling the number of wild tigers across their range by the next year of the taiga. You know, the Taiga Summit was in 2010, which was the year of the taiga. Next year of the taiga, 2022, is when the target of doubling the number of tigers is set. And so that's a political instrument which provides the enabling environment for the governments and all partners to work together towards a common goal. The instrument for implementing that mandate is the Global Tiger Recovery Program. Again, it's a 12-year program, and that's a mechanism that converts political will into specific actions. It has been endorsed at cabinet levels, and there is a ministerial process that supports it. It is cross-cutting across sectors. It is country-driven. 94% of all actions are national actions, and only 6% are global. It's clearly costed. There is a $350 million cost price tag attached to it for the first 5 years. There is clear, sharp focus on monitoring. You can talk about a lot of biodiversity indicators, but there's one very clear indicator: what's happening to the tiger population. Is it going up or down? So monitoring on one clear indicator, focusing on that indicator, really helps with accountability and transparency of what's happening. And there are 14 supporting indicators. There is a mechanism for financing, which is flexible and also mixed. There's no central fund, but a variety of sources are coordinating towards a shared goal. And the World Bank is housing a secretariat, and that helps connect to the broader economic programs, which is essential. I won't talk much about the results of the initial phase. In essence, it did create political will and authority to act with urgency. It created a very solid platform for knowledge exchange and collaboration between countries, and it is leveraging resources. So far, more than $215 million has already been lined up. There is still a gap to be filled, but the process is ongoing. I already mentioned that beyond the sort of the one-off blip on the screen of this Tiger Summit. There is now a stable ministerial process that escorts this effort, and every couple of years the ministers of the range countries meet to really sharpen and update the goals. So last year the ministers met in Bhutan and developed a very clear action agenda looking forward. There are those 9 points that are on your screen. And to support that agenda, an updated implementation plan has been drafted again by all 13 countries. And a few months ago, during the International Tiger Day, a gathering of all countries in Kunming, China, has adopted and released that new implementation plan. So to sum up, what is it in terms of kind of more generic issues that come up as some clear lessons from the Global Tiger Initiative? We, and by we I mean the Tiger Range countries supported by the partners, have been able to create a sense of urgency and scale, enforced mechanisms for mutual accountability, meaning that countries come to the common platform in which none of the countries can afford to be lagging behind. They are all accountable to each other to really produce the results. Governments are put in the front. It's not an NGO-driven initiative or kind of academic-driven initiative. It's a country-driven initiative. And that's what really makes a huge difference. There's a collaboration across the range. Policymakers are connected to practitioners globally and locally, and there is a shared goal to create a collective impact. So it is about focus on getting things done, incubating innovation, and connecting local to global knowledge. Focus to the front lines is obvious. You know, all of us are passionate about making sure that there is impact on the ground, and the various programs and projects that are associated with the Global Tiger Recovery Program are all focusing on that. There is a significant focus on learning, practitioner learning. There's been programs supported both for frontline practitioners and for executive leaders across sectors. A very major and important development, which really eventually will make the fundamental difference, is the innovation approaches to what was originally called smart grid infrastructure. And this was a notion that was introduced at the Convention on Biological Diversity, COP, in Nagoya in 2010 by the World Bank president. And it is really about the mitigation hierarchy: avoidance where possible, minimization of impacts, and rehabilitation, restoration, and offsets where avoidance is not possible. I mean, it's not something entirely new, but systematically applying it to the integrated spatial planning processes is really key. And one of our countries that is a very active member, Malaysia, they've done some excellent work on applying through the master plan for the Central Forest Spine how to apply this mitigation hierarchy in planning infrastructure in Peninsular Malaysia. There's some really groundbreaking work which is now ongoing in India on modeling impact of various infrastructure and extractive industry developments on wildlife corridors. And so this all has reminded me of my days back at school when I was studying geography, and there was some famous work of a theoretical geographer, Professor Rodoman, who was professing this notion of polarized landscape and polarized biosphere. So this is really, for human-dominated landscapes, this is really the future, how eventually through integrated spatial planning we should be able to reconcile the priorities for development with priorities for conservation and conserving wilderness. Another innovation that the Global Tiger Initiative was instrumental in introducing was the International Consortium on Combating Wildlife Crime. I won't dwell on it much. Just here's a most recent statement by the Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations, which cited this as one of the most significant achievements to date in coordinating national enforcement authorities. Another innovation that we had helped launch was bringing the business to the forefront of biodiversity conservation. India has launched, the Confederation of Indian Industry with 90,000 corporate members has launched last year India Wildlife Business Council, and the World Bank Group has been a partner and supporter in this effort. And there is interest in similar approaches in both in East Asia and we are hearing some interest in East Africa. So we would be willing, very interested in following up on how these could be applied in other countries. Some other innovative solutions are now connected to the boost in open data and open knowledge. And I'm just referring to a couple of those recent initiatives. One is Open Parks Network, and another one, Open Landscapes Partnership Platform. Both were recently launched, and we are collaborating with both in really enabling free access to data, both satellite data for, again, for integrated spatial planning and for exchange of knowledge between park professionals. And the Leadership for Results in Conservation program is, again, an emerging consortium of partners in the Tiger Range countries and internationally that will focus on bringing about leadership teams that would be able to effectively resolve those multi-sectoral issues around conservation landscapes. So it is all about moving from isolated interventions to collective impact. And it's not just about saving a single species. So to recite, the lessons are high-level political will and champions, such as the heads of state and heads of governments, focusing on collective impact, country-driven agenda, and coordinated reporting to raise profile of challenges and priorities, create community of practice, very thorough coordination, measurement, and continuous communications. Funding collective engagement is critical, and until all that is realized, mobilizing external resources is a challenge that may take time. Our next steps, we will continue to increase focus on working with the countries on addressing demand for wildlife parts, mobilize additional resources. I already mentioned the Wildlife Business Councils. Now, important new development is that this model from the Global Tiger Initiative is already being picked by other countries and other species. So 2 weeks from now, there will be a global snow leopard conservation forum hosted by the president of the Kyrgyz Republic. And the GTI is, at the request of the government, is providing assistance and putting it together. I already talked about the leadership for conservation, results in conservation. So yes, this is this snow leopard initiative. It's 12 countries. Yeah. Yes, of which 5 are also our tiger countries: Bhutan, China, India, Nepal, and Russia. And so the forum will be 2 weeks from now. And there is interest from other countries, like Arab countries are interested in applying similar approach to Arabian leopard. And the president of the African Development Bank was keen to learn about how to apply these lessons in the African context. So we are now looking at the GTI advisory services as offering to those who are interested to apply those lessons. Thank you very much.